what is the most popular type of investment in Nova Scotia, and getting to know, is it multi-res, is it duplex, single family homes? I want to know exactly how to deal with, the tenants and what the screening process that she uses as being a property manager in Nova Scotia.
They were going to set the house on fire. This was an excessive situation, never happened before. We're opiate users, and they really didn't know what, very aggressive.
I thought Ontario was bad, yes, but at least they have some type of consistency with their way of collecting. So hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for the Canadian Real Estate Channel. My name is Kayla Andrade. I'm the co-host and also the founder of Ontario Landlords Watch. Our last video, we had Stella Van Der Lugt from Landlords of Nova Scotia giving us a good taste of what it's like to invest into Nova Scotia, and got a nice view from her window at the same time. So if we're lucky, we might get another view of what that looks like from her window. But we're going to talk about, and we took the plunge. We bought a property in Nova Scotia. One, it's about what is the most popular type of investment in Nova Scotia, and getting to know, is it multi-res, is it duplex, single family homes? I want to know exactly how to deal with, the tenants and what the screening process that she uses as being a property manager in Nova Scotia, and also a huge advocate and a support for the landlords in Nova Scotia. Because Stella, please tell the viewers here about, Landlords of Nova Scotia's Facebook group, how they can join and how they can follow what is happening in Nova Scotia first. Let's start there.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having me, Kayla. Landlords Nova Scotia. Yes, that's my Facebook page where we share information on how to handle tenants, what to do with bad tenants, how to avoid getting bad tenants, stories that other people had, in order to educate other would-be landlords. The best advice I can give everybody is hire a good property management company, because then you can avoid 99% of all the issues. Because I always say to people, investing is one of the biggest investments that you make in your life. Other than a car, your house or a rental property is very expensive. So you need to know what you're doing. It's like giving the keys to your Lamborghini to a stranger that wants to take it for a test drive. You don't do that. You won't even think about it. But houses, people try to save money and not hire a good property manager, and it can cost you.
And especially with the hype of what's happening in Nova Scotia right now, is that we have a lot of investors seeing the opportunities that are happening, and they might think that they can run it from home, and that could backfire in the long run. But what kind of properties are the most popular, would you say, is in the long term of renting in Nova Scotia?
Well, my company, VDL Property Management, is representing small landlords. So I can't really tell about the big companies. The big units, like I have here in Bedford as well, are managed by real estate investment companies, and that's a total different ballgame. So my clients that I represent, small landlords, their units up to, say, a sixplex unit. But the most popular, because we simply don't have the larger infrastructure other than in the city, are single-family homes, or single-family homes with a separate basement suite, a duplex, and a triplex.
And do you see duplexes and secondary suites kind of becoming the new norm in Nova Scotia?
It definitely is. The Halifax Regional Municipality changed the bylaws. So in order to address the need for housing, they allow a very smooth process right now. If you do have a basement and it has a separate entrance, you can confirm it into a secondary suite without too many problems. So that has been a big help, and a lot of people are doing it also to supplement their own income, and because it's relatively easy to get the permits to do it today.
And that would be my next question. It was Are they nice with you, or did they make it easier to make it hard to get that the additional units? I think it's definitely one of the solutions of housing to creating housing is additional units and secondary units. So do they make it hard? And obviously you said it's pretty easy to get your secondary suite almost started.
The municipality actually, beginning of last year, 2021, allowed things like backyard structures to be erected and made into a small housing unit. But of course, you have to follow the guidelines. People have to have permits and building inspections done, and then get an occupancy permit. So you have to follow the guidelines. Otherwise, you're just throwing your money out of the window, because if it's not legal, you're not allowed to do it. But the legality of it is made easier. And so a lot of people are getting the permits to do it. And therefore, it will help the shortage of housing that we have here. We have a 1.9% vacancy rate. It was even worse. It was 0.9, so we gained 1%, but still, it's a very low vacancy rate.
So now that you got yourself into, multiple different ways of investing into Nova Scotia, my question now is, what if you get that tenant? We don't get the good property manager and we did it ourselves, and we have that one tenant that is being is that a huge problem in Nova Scotia like it's here in Ontario? Or if it is, how do you handle that in Nova Scotia? What's your process like?
The process is similar, I think, like in Ontario. First, you have to go and fill out some forms. For example, if a tenant pays rent too late, you have to wait till day 16 to provide them with a form, a notice to quit, which says if you pay within 15 days, you can stay. And then the notice to quit is null and void. So that causes issues because people have mortgage payments that come out, let's say, on the 6th, and they don't have their money until the end of the month, because you can give notice on the 16th of every month, which brings you already to the following month, which the tenant is then already technically too late if they don't pay. If they don't pay, you have an option to file for a hearing. And then plead your case that you cannot have a tenant living for free. So the hearing process, unfortunately, is long. It takes a minimum of 3 weeks before you have a hearing date. Then you get the date. Then they have 2 weeks to decide what they want to do. So you're already behind again. And then they would say, well, you're right, so this tenant has to leave, and then they give them usually another month. Or they say, sorry, you're wrong, landlord, you got to stick with them and work it out. So it's wow. Yeah.
They just say, like, they could just tell you got to work it out, like work out a payment arrangement with them and not evict them for non-payment of rent.
It depends on the tenancy officer, of course, but you really have to have a good case in order for them to say, okay, these people have to go. And non-payment of rent is one of them. But other things are more difficult to solve, like, say, marijuana use that you don't want in your property. You have to prove it. So is it theirs, or is it somebody else that was visiting, or in a nuisance to other tenants? What happened? Is there police reports? Do you have pictures? And those kind of things. It's a difficult situation.
So your non-payment of rent, it would be considered an easier, is that a valid reason for an eviction? Like, or would they still prolong the eviction process for non-payment?
Well, they're looking into situations why people are not paying rent and how long they live there. So it depends. If you just moved in and stopped paying rent after month 1, you're out. It's quite certain that you're out. Mm-hmm. If you live there for 5 years and missed a month and the landlord wants you out, then they probably want you to arrange a payment situation with them and try to work with the tenant. But it depends on the officer. The law basically states that, hey, you have to pay rent. You cannot live for free. Mm-hmm. So if you don't pay your rent, then you lose the roof over your head. It's quite logic. But unfortunately, there are people that think that because landlords have a secondary home, that they owe it to them to live there for free, which
yeah. Your court process here in Ontario is it's the Landlord and Tenant Board. What is
Right.
it called in Nova Scotia?
The Residential Tenancy Board.
And how much do you pay to file at the board for a non-payment of rent?
You pay $31.15 for a hearing.
Wow. That is awesome. Sorry. I love it. This is what I really enjoy. Is like, and you said 3 weeks. I'm like, we took 4 months to get a hearing. Right now, it's better than 12, but we got 4 months. So you're saying from the time of filing, and you give that notice, you actually have to wait until 16 days from them being late before you can give them a form?
Yes.
And
correct.
then you have 15 days from receiving that form before the landlord can file for a hearing.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. And then once you get into your hearing, and let's say your adjudicator or your officer is stating, yes, you've been not paying rent. Obviously you haven't showed any way of doing it. After do they give you like an order in order to take to a sheriff to evict, or how does the eviction process
So there is a 2-week appeal period. So it's a 15-day appeal period. So the tenants can appeal. And then if there's no appeal made, you can make it into an order of the director. That order you have to take to small claims court. Small claims court is then the one that's going to decide if you're in the right and if a sheriff is being contacted. So
Wow.
first you need to have a small claims court order, because without the order you cannot get them out. But once you have the small claims court order, you can contact the sheriff. You pay the sheriff fees. I think it's about $100 right now. And then the sheriff will make an appointment. You'll have to show up with a locksmith. The locksmith changes all the locks and doesn't physically remove the tenant from the place, but they will put a notice on the door that the tenant is not allowed to enter, and therefore that they're trespassing, which is a criminal offense. If the house happens to be full of stuff, then you have to make arrangements with the tenants to come and pick that stuff up within a reasonable time frame. Now, what is a reasonable time frame? Again, that's up to the tenancy officer. So if someone says, well, I tried to make an appointment with her to get my stuff, but she doesn't answer phone calls or emails, when it's not true, then you're stuck with the stuff. So they made a new rule. It used to be 60 days. So after 60 days and tenants not coming for their stuff, you were supposed to sell it, put it on Facebook Marketplace, go to flea markets around the city, wherever, and then you needed to note all the proceeds and take that off from the money that they owed you. So you had to do the work. So now they changed that rule from 60 days into 30 days. So at least you're not out another 2 months rent because there's stuff in the house that you have to get rid of and sell.
Oh my God. So, okay, let's backtrack. So once you go to the Landlord and Tenant Board and they say, yes,
It's a residential tenancy board.
Residential tenancy board, and they give you paper to go to small claims court.
Yeah, small claims has to stamp it and make it an order. And when you have the order, but the tenant can appeal, and then it goes to small claims court. So the appeal period after the tenancy officer made their ruling is 15 days. If they appeal, it's going to go to small claims court, which of course, small claims court is not as quickly accessible.
But if they don't appeal it,
you go to small claims court, get it stamped, and make it an order of director. The small claims court accepts that it has filed at the small claims court. Okay. Then you go with that order to the sheriff's office. You also have to go to the registry of deeds, which you have to pay $179 because you have to record the debt. So that's why a lot of people are not doing it, because there's a lot of steps and a lot of money involved before you can actually go to the sheriff.
Okay, so this is where we're going to talk to anyone who's investing into Nova Scotia right now about Front Lobby and Landlord Credit Bureau and Equifax.
Yep.
this is the game changer for Nova Scotia. Like, I thought Ontario is bad, yes, but at least they have some type of consistency with their way of collecting. So for the landlords in Nova Scotia, being able to report your tenants' monthly payment history on a regular basis, for the good tenants, it's going to be great. You're going to help build their credit. But for tenants who don't pay, it's automatically being put in to Landlord Credit Bureau and also Equifax to show their payment history. So a lot of landlords would be like, oh, do I need to get the tenant's consent? You don't need the tenant's consent to report a debt, but you do need the tenant's consent to report a good payment to Landlord Credit Bureau and Equifax. So as landlords are doing their credit checks, which is available through Front Lobby as well, the long form Equifax credit checks, you start to see trade lines. I think sometimes landlords look at the score. They don't look at the revolving, their trade lines of what's in there. And I think that tells me a bigger story. And knowing that you had a trade line showing Front Lobby, the landlord in whom registered that debt, this is a way to help our landlords in making sure that we're not dealing with professional tenants, and being able to inform other landlords about the tenants that are out there abusing the system that you have to go through. Because they know a lot of landlords like, what are you going to do? Are you really going to go through that process of the board and going to small claims court and then having to get the sheriff and then registering the debt? What did you say? Registering the debt with the
registry of deeds.
Registry of deeds.
And this is why I stress again that it's so important to have a good property manager. As far as I know, I'm the only one in the province that guarantees my tenants. So in other words, if a tenant doesn't pay rent or whatever reason that they're not doing what they're supposed to do, I go to court free of charge. I do this.
Wow. And you can do that. Like, you can represent your clients at the board.
Yeah, I can. And because we have a lot of out of province clients, they have to have someone here that is keeping an eye on things and doing things if it goes wrong. I'm not letting my clients high and dry if there's an issue. I'm actually trying to solve it for them. I'm not paying the damages, but I am going to court and try to get at least that debt registered.
So and that's for the you go to small claims as well for the
whole process. Yes.
Awesome. So you'll probably, that's why you're loving the concept of rent reporting and being able to report past tenants' debt going back 6 years. So if you have anyone that you need to catch up on, now it could be a little time consuming getting all their information, but again, our landlords, you just need their full name and their birth date in order to report and register the debt with Landlord Credit Bureau and also Equifax. This is, I think the times are changing, just like you said in our previous video of how many people are going into other provinces and getting into rentals and looking for home ownership, and the cost of everything is going crazy. So we can see if times are tough, obviously the first thing is almost like rent, and we need to know that there's a process. And sadly for Nova Scotia, they don't have any type of rent relief programs or portable housing benefits that we have here in Ontario. So they literally probably give the tenants every bit of hope, through the board to really work that out. So Stella, now that you've had a tenant that, hasn't paid rent, you've registered their debt, what about a situation where the eviction, where they put something on the door to say that they can't come in? Is that when you call the police after to remove them from the property if they try to enter?
Yes. So the sheriff puts the notices up on every door and entryway. The locks are being changed in the presence of the locksmith. So they basically have no right to be in the property. If they do, it's treated as it becomes a criminal offense and not a civil anymore. It becomes break and enter. And yes, you call the police.
Is there any criminal laws that you have throughout the tenancy that could be laid to the tenant? Let's say damages, if they damage the unit, is that still a more of a board issue that you have to go deal with, or can police actually lay charges?
No, unfortunately, the police cannot lay charges. In fact, I was called to a property where there was a disturbance, and there were two tenants there, and they were in the process of being evicted, and they had gas tanks filled with gasoline, and they threw this as a duplex all over the deck and in the barbecue of the upstairs tenant. So I came along because a neighbor warned me, and I saw them there. The jerry cans of gas were on the ground. The police came right away, and the police says to me, well, we can't really prove that it was them that put the gasoline all over the deck. So they didn't do a thing. And they were going to set the house on fire.
So maybe a tip for landlords is getting some cameras around your properties just to give it a little bit extra security.
Well, this was an excessive situation. Never happened before. We're opiate users, and they really didn't know what, very aggressive. So, and that was a first. These tenants were not put in by me, just to make that clear. But it was a landlord that called and said, help, can you help? And I helped. So
tenants who are inherited, we got to love that. And especially with new owners, you don't know what you're coming into when you're buying a property. You don't know what the tenants are like, and you got to be prepared. And every landlord, don't wait to learn about how to, deal with a problematic tenant. Learn now, so that when you are dealing with a problem tenant, you know what to do, so you're not wasting time doing the research. Now, Stella, from start to finish, just for a non-payment of rent, would that what does that timeline look like for like days, and would it be the same if one tenant is causing problems for another tenant?
How many days for non-payment and rent? These are two different situations you're sketching. So non-payment and rent on day 16, it actually is recommended on day 17 to give notice to the tenant. Mm-hmm. You have to do that either in person, or if you were smart enough, put it on a lease agreement that you can serve documents through email or text, and that's considered served. Or you send it by registered mail, which of course not always is being picked up if they know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So let's say you do this on day 17, they have 15 days to pay the rent. If they don't do it, they need to vacate the property. If they don't vacate, then you go to the tenancy board, you'll file for a hearing. That will take another 3 weeks before you have the hearing. Then it's another 2 weeks before the officer can make a decision maximum. Sometimes they do it right away. Sometimes it's the full 2 weeks. Then you have to register with small claims court. Then you have to go to the sheriff's office. And then the sheriff says, well, we'll come in 3 weeks. So that's the time period there. If there's a disturbance, or if a landlord is in danger, or another tenant is in danger, then you can give a 5-day notice. So the property can be in danger, the landlord itself by, being threatened by a tenant, or other tenants being threatened by a tenant. It's considered 5-day notice. So it goes a little quicker.
So for the non-payment, you could be looking at around 3 months, but we can go quicker if we're getting ourselves into the tenant interfering with other tenants.
Right. And there's no police, because you can call the police, you can visit the property with the police present, they will be there, but it's a civil situation, so they won't interfere.
Do you feel that the way that they handle disputes in Nova Scotia, is that something that kind of rubs investors the wrong way? Some people who actually live there, they get out of the business because of the way that the dispute resolution system is?
Right now, our long-term landlords, people that are there for 10, 20 years, are massively leaving the business. Yes, mainly because of that frustration. That's number one. And they just don't want to deal with it anymore. The wheels of government run slowly, so it's very frustrating. B, because the property prices have risen, so that they finally now can actually make money selling their investment property, because sometimes it didn't even pay for itself. So yes, right now they're massively getting out, and we're getting new landlords in, and they're mostly out of province, which is a total different kind of ball game that we're in now.
Wow. Okay, now if any of our elected officials in Nova Scotia are watching this video, which I hope any landlord in Nova Scotia would share this type of struggle that investors are facing, you know, trying to be landlords in that province, because if they want supply, guess what? They need the small landlords in order to do it. What kind of advice or what recommendations would you give your elected officials in Nova Scotia of changes that should be made in order to protect the housing stock, to protect landlords and protect our good tenants?
The solution I see for this is that landlords are being heard. As you said, we are providing housing for people that cannot be homeowners. That's a private sector. Any private sector business is in it to make money. So in order for people now to invest with the inflated home prices and do it securely, I would suggest that if you want your province to grow, then you should give those people a return on their property taxes. So if a property is an investment property and it's a home for someone else, and you can prove it, and you have to, because otherwise everybody does, then yes, if you lower the property taxes for investors, I think that would help a great deal in getting more supply on the market.
Wow, I think you have some great ideas, Stella. I think we have many more great ideas that you can recommend to our elected officials, because I think a lot of our policy advisors, the ones who are helping our elected officials make these changes, I don't think they understand the real issues within the rental housing industry. They don't have their boots on the ground. And if you don't have your boots on the ground, what do? You listen to the people who do. Because I think in the end, landlords, tenants, and taxpayers, we're all paying for a housing crisis, and we need to be able to unify our voices and learn that together we can create a better, fair, and housing system so that we can not have to experience homelessness. And I don't think all of us want to, but we do have some bad apples out there who are abusing the system. And just about, you know, my advice to our elected officials in Nova Scotia is that we need to get some government programs to help tenants who are in hardship situation, so that way we can give them access and to those funds for their utilities or for their rent, in order to keep keeping them strong as a community member of Nova Scotia. Stella, I want to thank you so much for talking about this crazy way of how we have to invest in Nova Scotia. Definitely exciting, definitely some things that I like, things that I didn't quite like, but I do want to have you on again. I think we'll save the next topic to be a surprise because you are a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so thankful to have you here on the Canadian Real Estate Channel. If you like what you're hearing on the Canadian Real Estate Channel, hit subscribe, share it, leave us a comment of what other topics you want to know in Nova Scotia, so that we can bring that content to you. Education is key to helping you grow your successful real estate business, to be a good landlord, and to help our good tenants. Definitely reach out to Stella at Landlords Nova Scotia Facebook page. She also has a discount for Front Lobby for us to be able to offer a premium membership, so you can start rent reporting to protect you, to protect your assets, and to also help your tenants grow financial freedom and giving them financial wealth by rent reporting. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and until we have Stella on again, thank you for watching.
Thank you, Kayla.